Hey, Foot Clan, before we get today's show going, I want to remind everybody about pristineauction.com. Go over there, check out the website, check out the hundreds of amazing daily auctions that they have over there on sports memorabilia. In fact, this past week, we were able to tour the facility for pristineauction.com, and it is incredible the amount of stuff they have for your favorite sports team at really affordable prices, and it's 100% guaranteed authentic, run by some really great people. So check them out, pristineauction.com. That's Pristine auction.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the podcast. Guys, how are you doing today?
I'm
Fired up.
Oh,
Fired up.
Mike beat me. I'm not yet fired up, so he wins.
I'm on podcast enhancing performance beverages.
You didn't even put those words in the right order, so that doesn't bode well for the rest of this episode.
Lots of energy.
It is, what is the day? It is Thursday. It is Thursday, April 14th. And I'm Andy Holloway, joined by Jason Moore and Mike Wright. We are the Fantasy Footballers. Welcome into the show, the year-round fantasy football podcast that never stops. And we've got the NFL draft coming up soon.
Oh.
We've been doing our overviews for a number of our early ranking, a number of positions, our early rankings. You can actually check the rankings out right now on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Got them broken down by scoring type, broken down by position, and by individual. So if you want to ignore Jason's
Which
rankings,
I recommend you do.
just coincidentally, just choosing an example, if you wanted to ignore Jason's rankings, you could. You just sort by mine.
You just wouldn't win a championship, which is
So-
fine. You don't have to. We always say
You don't have to.
we always say it's more about the fun
You
in
play
fantasy football. But
to
if you want to win
win.
the championship, go ahead and click that Jason.
It's
sort
really
ascending, and
it's a
then just go
personal
by that.
choice if you want to win or not.
Yeah,
Sometimes I don't.
right.
Well, you didn't last year, right? Both of you guys.
Ah.
Oh, all right.
Well, that's it for today's show, and we'll catch you. No, we have been going through the tight ends were the last episode. So if you didn't listen to that, I thought it was a really great episode. We went through the top 10 tight ends in our consensus rankings, where we put all of our stats together and just talked about some of those guys. Really a deep position.
Yes, much deeper than you usually think about. Free agency was very kind to fantasy players with the Fleener and the Dwayne Allen split, Ladarius Green, Antonio Gates split, just giving
Martellus
us
Bennett, Zach Miller split.
Yeah, it's almost like they play fantasy football.
I was gonna say, I think all the tight ends got together at a winter meeting and said, "Look,
We mean something.
let's all give ourselves a chance to succeed." And they somehow it just fell that way. And so
They've heard that you usually only play one tight end, and they think that's a
well, you certainly
travesty.
can only throw to one tight end on any given play, and that's really helpful as well. So spread them out. So today we are not getting into the quarterbacks yet. We're going to save that for next week. We're going to answer a number of fantasy football questions on the show today. It is a mailbag type of show. We're going to answer a bunch of different questions on the voicemail hotline and through the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. You can visit us on Twitter at the FFBallers. Like I said, check out the rankings on the website. And obviously, you can join the fantasy community over there at jointhefoot.com. We've got exclusive content over there for our listeners. So, guys, I have a quick question for you before we get into the mailbag, and it is a simple one. We weren't able to talk about this at length on the Tuesday show because the news
hadn't happened yet.
The news didn't break, and honestly, I don't even know what the news is anymore because this whole thing started with, okay, Johnny Manziel's living with Von Miller. No, Johnny Manziel's living with Josh Gordon, and now, Josh Gordon. Well, the news is this. Josh Gordon's petition to be reinstated to the NFL has been denied.
You get nothing.
And everybody like me who chose to read the Players Tribune article by Josh Gordon, who chose to give him the benefit of the doubt in the decision-making.
You're extra angry, aren't you?
I'm extra angry. I'm angry like a father or something, where I'm giving you the opportunity to show me that you can be a responsible adult. You have genuinely I hate to scold any of these athletes. I feel like I owe him a scolding in the sense that you are given an opportunity that 1 in a billion get. And there are youth all over the United States that aspire to be in your position with your opportunity, Josh. And Johnny. And Trey Mason and whoever else you want to add to the list.
You're the father who's gone past anger and into disappointment.
Oh, disappointment.
It is.
Sit him down and have the talk.
Right. Yeah. So sit down, Josh. Look, it sounds like you're going to get another opportunity to apply for reinstatement in August, which is incredible.
I don't even get that.
Well, and maybe
because the deal is
maybe that means he really hasn't been down
the test was simply diluted. I'm not exactly sure how one dilutes.
You're not an expert on that topic.
No, I can't speak to it. So I'm not really sure, but like you said, he has a chance at least to reinstate again.
So here's the quick
before
question,
the season,
because my expectations for him are also diluted. Here we go. Josh Gordon will play in how many games the rest of his career? What is your lay it out there now? What do you think Josh Gordon's future holds? Because it stinks. It just stinks to see a guy perform like that and then be in this position.
Wow, that's tough.
Johnny Manziel wasn't good on the field and had this happen to him. So we don't know what we're missing really. We're not missing anything.
We are biased. If I could answer the Johnny Manziel question, that'd be a lot easier. That number would be 0. But for Gordon, man, I think he's obviously going to get another chance. Let's say he plays 5 years. I'm going to say this year he plays 0 games. That's
0?
what I'm going to guess and say he plays 0 games this year.
I am going all season. I think he will pee clean, so to speak, and I think he'll get reinstated.
And there you have it. Two very different answers.
Well, this is completely just your opinion, and that's how that he has the option and this extra gift of try again in August. I think that everything will be okay by then.
I will make my prediction and then ask you a follow-up question about Josh Gordon. I'm going to predict that he plays in 12 to 14 games this year. I will believe that this reinstatement process will take a little bit longer than expected beginning in August, and that's so close to the beginning of September and when the season begins. I'm thinking a 2 to 4 game time period where he is not on the field. That is my prediction as of today. Ever ready to open my Roto-World app and see that he has made some other mistake. But if you are a Dynasty League owner, where do you go from here? Because you can't flip him for much now in this situation. So is this just a hold and hope?
To me, it's completely hold and hope. I'm not selling Josh Gordon off for a late second-round rookie pick, a third-round rookie pick. Like, people are going to try and pillage away from your team. You got a risk-reward type of a thing, and the risk is maybe you get nothing, or you can get a third-round rookie pick, what's your success rate really going to be with that pick? Or Gordon comes back. So I'm just going to hold him. I'm not selling off for peanuts.
Yeah, you don't want to sell off for peanuts, but if you can actually be the one to get anything of value for him, then I would, just because
it brings back a situation to mind. Do you know which one I'm thinking of, Jason?
No, tell me.
Another athlete who was traded mere moments before his career certainly came to an end. And I remember in our league of records, somebody got a 4th-round draft pick in exchange for Aaron Hernandez. So you have
a little different.
It is certainly different. But at the time, it was like, should I buy in on him because maybe he'll be back later? And
I got out.
I
got a pick for it. And I would get out of Josh Gordon. We have to remember that these tests that they get, it's not like the second time we hear about it, they get suspended for a year. I mean, that is kind of how it feels. But that's at least the 4th time they've popped. And so you got popped, and you got told by the NFL, we caught you. And then you do it again, and then you got caught twice, and then you do it again, and you got caught 3 times, and then you do it again. You got caught at some point, you realize there's a problem that they're not going to be able to overcome. Justin Blackmon. This scares me a little bit for Bryant. I mean, I get a little bit more weary. I know I'm the most risk-averse of the 3 of us here, But that's where I lean. Although I would not get rid of him for nothing. I mean, there will be an owner out there who's going to take that risk. You just have to find him.
All right. I'd love to – no, not really. I would not love to talk about Josh Gordon all day. So we're going to move on to some other questions, some more productive questions for the fantasy football community, spanning a wide variety of areas. But if you have a question for the show, for us to answer, go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click the Submit a Question button, or you can dial our voicemail hotline, 302-464-TFFB. Let's do it.
Mailbag.
All right, we're going to start in the voicemail question category here. So let's go ahead and let's see if I can pull up the first one. And we can't. We can't.
You want me to move it on?
Yeah, go ahead and do the read the one from the United Kingdom.
Oofy?
Oofy. Let's go with Oofy.
And hailed green. This is a disaster. I apologize, Oofy. In our keeper league, you can keep between 0 and 4 players. Each keeper takes up an early round pick. So your first keeper counts as your first pick, second keeper, second round, etc. I'd like to have the rounds relate to the rounds in which the keepers were drafted instead. How would we transition into that format? Also, in that format, if I keep a guy drafted in the 9th round for many years, does he count as my 9th round pick every year, or do we adjust it? So let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, either format is going to be good. I actually really enjoy both formats where you have a round penalty and where you have no round penalty. They're both great. If you want to switch, how you switch is you take it up by a vote. You know, I don't know where you're listening from, but where we're talking from, we're democracy. Okay, so we're going to put this up for a vote, and if the league wants to change it, that's what you do.
I think what he means is if they transition, then how do they do that? And
how do you have a vote?
You're going to have to go ADP. That's how I would do it for the initial run.
Average draft position.
Yes, thank you.
So
average
you can find that at fantasyfootballcalculator.com. There are a number of other sources. You can also use some of your main league hosting sources like ESPN or Yahoo and see where they have initial rankings.
And the last part of his question as far as do you get to keep the guy at the same value forever, that's no way. Because otherwise what ends up happening is you are going to draft those rookies really late and end up hanging on, and every year when you get
maybe. I mean, if it's people know it's this way, they will start going in on rookies earlier.
I think it's personally, I would really prefer to have a thing where every year it's 2 rounds above where you picked them last year. It puts more of, because if you're going this route, the reason you do that is you want more talent in the draft. If you don't want the talent in the draft, then you go no pick penalty, and everybody's keeping the best guys. So to go to the pick penalty, you get more elite talent in the draft. Having that escalate every year, a couple more picks, will help that goal.
Yeah, I like the escalation. So
hey guys, this is Huss from New York City.
New York City.
Hope that was a long enough pause for you to do it. I'm in a 10-team half-point per reception league where you can keep up to 2 players just by giving up 2 rounds from the previous year's draft. The rosters are QB, RB, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. And I got 4 guys to pick from. One of them is a no-brainer. It's Todd Gurley for a 4th rounder. But then it gets tricky because I can keep Cam Newton for a 14th rounder.
Wow.
Don't worry, Jason. I drafted him in the 16th round last year. And then the other options are Thomas Rawls for an 8th because you can keep free agents for an 8th rounder. Or Jordy Nelson for a 9th. And I'm stuck because I know Cam Newton would be amazing value in the 14th, but I know also that quarterbacks can be up and down. So any advice you can give, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
This is not a tough one for me because of the values of those guys. So I would personally take Rawls, Nelson, and Gurley.
Rawls, Nelson, Gurley?
Yeah.
So you're dropping...
he gets 2/3, so I drop Newton now. I know the
really?
value. I know the value's there, but this is not Rawls in the 4th and Nelson in the 3rd. This is Rawls in the 8th, Nelson in the 9th. I would go Gurley, Rawls, Nelson, and draft my quarterback later.
I would as well.
Yeah.
Because
man, that's
I know
tough.
it seems simplistic, but the practical argument of, okay, I'm in the draft now. Can I draft Newton in the 2nd round of this draft? Probably. Could I draft Nelson? Probably not.
Right.
Or whatever. You're going to get Nelson and Rawls.
Yeah, your replacement value
yeah,
for the quarterback is there. That's tough to give away 14th round for the guy who was the number 1 quarterback.
So if you were to keep
I'm in
Newton,
agreement.
Okay, so if you were to keep Newton though, which is
Rawls.
the better situation? Rawls for the 8 or Nelson for the 9?
I think I would still take Nelson.
I would go
You
Rawls,
would-
so
you
you
would
got
take-
the tiebreaker here, Andy.
Yeah.
Oh, in that situation, I would probably take Nelson as of today. Doesn't mean it won't change.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
yeah,
that.
you should take his monster away.
Never.
Carmen in San Diego. He says,
What?
Oh,
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
bow, bow.
It's like Andy didn't get in on that at all.
No, but I was visualizing my childhood.
Spectacular.
That was such a good show.
Yeah, the game show.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking
Except
about.
if you were the kid who got the Europe map at the end.
Or any map but the United States. This is the only time that they ever won anything was if they got the United States. Everybody else, it was back when game shows, you just didn't win them.
Yeah.
Most, 90% of the time, you didn't win. All right. I like that I read that with no recognition of the fact this is Carmen Sandiego. You touched on a favorite league format during the election show and mentioned 3 keepers are ideal. How many consecutive years should a player be allowed to be kept on a team's roster? His other details that he adds to this question is #FootClan title.
Yeah, Carmen.
I'll start this one out. Ultimately, the answer is however many you'd like. It's preferential. This is not and that's what you're asking, our opinion on it too.
so
If
what's
it's up
your
to me,
opinion?
My opinion is that you do not limit that. That's my opinion. I don't think you need to limit that. We tried to do that in some leagues in the past, and really it didn't make a difference because the leagues were active enough to where these pinnacle type of players were traded on a regular basis, and nobody ever had that situation. If your league does not have trading ever, I'm sorry for you, and I guess I would limit it at 3 years if I had to pick a time period.
Even if there was no trading, I'd still say no dice, no keeper regulation for years.
Okay, so you're in agreement.
Free market, baby.
Yeah, and
Is that what that is?
I agree with that. What both of you are saying is it will usually work itself out. I will say this: back in the day when LaDainian Tomlinson was the guy for a very long stretch, that stunk when you were in a keeper league because that team was always in the championship game.
You didn't see anybody just go and send the house for him?
No, if you got a guy that was that good, problem is that going to be able to happen again? You know, it could.
Yeah, it could. That's tough though, especially for running backs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jackson in Bengals country, Kansas.
Okay.
I have not been there.
I have not either. I've not either.
Hey, he said he loves the show. Going to make it quick and simple. In a half-point PPR, 12-man league, who do you draft in these head-to-head situations?
Okay.
I will remind you that you can answer this question. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. I won't say that. I was going to say
Cool
you can
story,
answer this
bro.
question with our rankings, but that's not true at all. All right, Des Bryant versus Jordy Nelson. Who do you guys take?
Oh, Dez.
I take Des.
Yep.
Tony Romo versus Nick Foles
Okay.
versus Sam Bradford.
Tony Romo.
Nick Foles. I only say it because
Jeff Fisher?
Why is he even on this
Jeff
list?
Fisher, are you here?
He should not be in this consideration.
That's all right. That's all right. Tony Romo.
Romo, Bradford, and then anything else.
A box of rocks.
A box of rocks. RG3 or Kaepernick in a Broncos jersey.
Oh, definitely Kaepernick in a
Kaepernick.
Broncos.
Can you
jersey.
actually draft him in a Broncos jersey right now?
You can wear a Broncos jersey and draft him. That's about as close as you
okay.
get.
Because I am still right. He is not traded.
Yeah, at this moment, sure.
C.J. Anderson versus Gio Bernard versus Jeremy Hill.
I'm going to take Jeremy Hill out of that bunch.
I'll take C.J. Anderson.
Oh, he says through squinted.
Anderson.
For everybody listening, in the studio before the show, we're doing other stuff, and Andy just out of nowhere says, "Oh, I think I'm coming around on C.J. Anderson." So, Andy, do you have some
I'm
words
running
to say?
in my seat.
I'm not. I don't know what's happening. Here's the thing. As much value that I place on my own pride and dignity, I'm willing to lay those things down for the sake of the Foot Clan. Yes. And if the Foot Clan needs to know the best running backs, Mike is just freaking. He started smacking his belly earlier in joy. Look, I think there's a chance C.J. Anderson's going to be really good.
I feel like the Emperor pulling you to the dark side right now.
I'm not committing to it yet. I'm opening the door because I've been down on him. Jason gets on board with me and said, "Look, I've kind of had enough of propping C.J. Anderson up." So we'll see. It's to be determined. I would take him over Jeremy Hill and Gio right now.
Really?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And so you would as well, Mike?
Yes, I would as well.
Would anybody care to make a water bet with me, Jeremy Hill?
Not today.
All right.
Not today. All right. We are going apparently very international here with Eric in Oslo, Norway.
Bonjour.
Can you do too much streaming? Is it possible to have success while streaming quarterback and tight end, kicker, and defense, or is it better to go for an every week starter in a couple of the positions?
You can. I mean, the answer is both here. If you have a lockdown starter, well, then that is better. But you can absolutely win streaming all four of those positions. I would say in general, most of my teams, I stream quarterback, tight end, kicker, and defense.
At least 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah, I mean, last year I know I had Gronkowski in a couple leagues.
You had Greg Olsen as well.
And Greg Olsen. So I'm not going to stream over those guys, but you can win at any of those positions. I will say this. If you have to stream 4 positions at once, your bench size starts to matter because you're going to have to, swap guys in and out if you ever want to hold more than one at a time, which you're fine to just hold that guy, drop him to waivers, and pick up his replacement every week. But I know a lot of times people are scared of that.
Sure, and you are perfectly fine streaming those 4.
Let me add to this. We talk about streaming positions and people hear it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You're not streaming with a goal to stream, really. I mean, you are and you aren't, right? You're not drafting a quarterback high on purpose, but you're also drafting a quarterback late that you hope could be an every week starter. Yeah. Whether it's a Carson Palmer last year or a Cam Newton late or a Tom Brady late. These are guys that went at the very end of the draft, Derek Carr, that you probably could start 3/4 of the time. Some of those, obviously, every week. And so your goal is still to find you might draft Eric Ebron thinking you're starting tight end. I mean, you're streaming tight end, and you might not have to.
Yeah.
Eifert last year, you drafted him, you hoped you didn't stream. So your goal is not really to be shuffling your entire roster every week. It's just you put yourself in the position with these positions specifically that you can do that and succeed. So Tim in California, big fan, says he loves the show, loves us.
Thanks, Tim.
Trying to decide which 5 I should keep. This is an auction league, so he's got prices next to these guys. Wide receivers, he's got John Brown for $12, Tyler Lockett for $5, DeVante Parker for $5. Running backs, he said he has Hyde for 10, Latavius Murray for 10, and Langford for 5. So he's dropping one guy off of this list.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We just got to give someone the boot.
It's a 14-teamer.
I'm going to wait till the NFL draft, if at all possible, because the Oakland and Chicago running back situations are in flux to me. I'm not very worried. I'd keep all those wide receivers. And so but for me, it's going to be between Murray and Langford that I would drop off. That is going to be my.
See, and I'm definitely going to keep. I mean, I agree with you. I'll wait for the draft because those running backs could have. If Ezekiel Elliott goes 14 to the Raiders.
Yeah, I guess if nothing happened to either of those,
but if nothing happens to either, I'm going to keep all 3 of those guys and get rid of one of these
So which wide receiver would you do? Get rid of?
I love John Brown this year, and I love DeVante Parker. I'm still a Doug Baldwin believer over Tyler Lockett, so I'm going to kick Lockett to the curb.
Lockett is my drop as well, assuming the status quo stays for the running backs.
You can like Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett.
I do.
It's totally fine.
No, I do, but here's what you can't do. You can't like Doug Baldwin and think Tyler Lockett is going to have a monster break. You can't say, look, Tyler Lockett's going to be like a close wide receiver 1. This is going to be his huge breakout year, and believe that Baldwin is also going to have a great year. I don't think
we're saying that about Lockett. The thing with Lockett is the upside exists. I'm not drafting him
and you're
to
right.
be anything other than a low end 3 or a 4. I mean, I'm not reaching on Tyler Lockett. I want him on my team because of the talent level and with the way that the team, how efficient they were towards the end of the year. So potential is there. But that's not I'm reaching humongously for Lockett.
I did realize something before we get to this next question from Paul in Canada. I didn't mention this. We are going to be eligible for a podcast award for the show.
We did.
We forgot to mention that.
That's funny.
And what we would love the Foot Clan to do, if you love the show, if you want to support us, there is going to be a nominating opportunity to nominate this show for an award in the sports category and in the
People's Choice
category on podcastawards.com. Now, you're listening to this. If you're listening to it on Thursday, you can't go and do this yet. But if you are listening after that date, or you remember this, on Friday you can go to podcastawards.com, and there will be the opportunity to nominate this show. And so what we'd love to have you do is, if you're willing and able, to go over to podcastawards.com, scroll down, nominate this show for the sports podcast category and the People's Choice category. You only get to do it one time on the website.
So one time, or is it one time a day?
No, it's only one time ever to nominate. So just keep that in mind. We wanted to bring it up because it would be pretty cool to have the Foot Clan support over there. And
Foot Clan.
You got anything else?
Assemble.
Assemble. And
Does that make you Shredder?
I guess.
If anybody's Shredder.
Yeah.
You're more of a Bebop. All right, so check it out.
Why that's so because you're basically saying you're a warthog?
I don't know what I'm saying. We'll mention this again. I think there's a 15-day nominating period, but it would be pretty cool if people went over there. So anyways, Paul in Edmonton, Canada. Hey, guys, I'm in a 12-team full PPR keeper league with 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a flex.
All right.
We are allowed to keep 3 players at the round that they were picked at, and any free agents that are kept for the are currently – wait, I just skipped a line there.
Free agents are kept for a 17th
Sorry
round
about
pick.
that. Yeah, just like Jason likes it. If you keep 2 free agents, then the next one is in the 16th round, and so on. Currently, I know I'm keeping Odell Beckham Jr. for a first and Allen Robinson for a 4. My question is this. Which of the following should I keep? So one out of this, Jonathan Stewart for a 3, Josh Gordon for a 17, Lewis for a 17. That's Dion Lewis. And Jeremy Langford for a 17.
How many? 1?
Yep, 1 in a PPR.
That's going to be Dion Lewis.
Yeah,
Dion Lewis at the 17th in a full PPR. In a full PPR, he actually cracks, I believe, 2/3 of our RB1s. He's an RB1 projected in a full point PPR. To get him with the last pick, what? I mean, I don't even know what else you could possibly hope for than getting an RB1 in the last round.
Assuming
there is an argument to be made for Jeremy Langford. He is not coming off an injury, and if nobody else is drafted in Chicago, he did catch a lot of passes last year.
I will give you that argument in the sense that he has the chance to be an RB1 as well. So it's not necessarily contradicting what I just said. You're hoping for an RB1. It's which one of those guys are you looking for? I think in a full point PPR, you just have a baseline there.
Yeah, I'd go Lewis as well.
All right, let's go ahead and do a voicemail question. I'm going to pull that up here. Here we go.
Hey, guys. This is Steven from College Station, Texas. A little teaser for what's to come. I got 2 questions. First one's a commissioner question. I'm reducing my roster size, and so it's a dynasty league. The scoring doesn't really matter, but I'm wondering how I should handle all of the extra guys. It's a IDP league, and I didn't put roster restrictions. A lot of people are just stashing a bunch of offense, and they're not really holding on to defensive guys. So I'm going to reduce the roster size a little bit, and so when people do that, and after we draft, we're drafting only rookies. So after all that happens, I'm kind of just wondering how you guys think I should handle dealing with all the influx of players into the quote-unquote free agency. So just any ideas that y'all have on how to deal with that. The second question I really have is this is more kind of an afterthought. Being from College Station, a lot of guys in my league are in another league are Aggie fans. So we all pretty like Mike Evans. So I'm just wondering where you guys think is too early to draft Mike Evans. Someone I've been looking at, someone I've been really looking to get. So when do y'all think drafting Mike Evans is too early? Thanks. Love the show. Keep it up, guys.
All right.
Well, I'll tackle the first half of that first question there. If let's say you've got 40 guys, if you're in an IDP league and you're going to 30 in your dynasty, obviously, like you said, a lot of guys are going to go back into the waivers, and so you need to know how do you deal with that. And here's how you're going to deal with it. what you're going to do is you're going to make the roster size smaller than what it will end up in as the year goes on. So if you're going to go to 30, then make the roster cut down to like a 28 or something like that. And then if you've normally got, say, a 4-round rookie draft, you're going to make it a 6-round or a 7-round, 8-round draft, and it's going to be a rookie/vet free agent draft. So in that draft, instead of it being just rookies, you'll actually include the veterans who have been cut to waivers in that group. And actually, I know a lot of dynasty leagues prefer to have their rookie drafts every year they close their waivers in the offseason, and then they draft
either
vets and rookies together. But that's a great way to do it if you're downsizing your roster, which it sounds like you need to do. Yeah,
the only thing I like that idea, or I would just make sure you're on a fab system, and maybe instead of $100, bump it up this year to $150 or something.
Well, how do you handle that in the offseason with fab spending, though?
Because it depends if they close every day. I would do the waivers.
When does the fab reset? Isn't that an in-season budget?
No, okay, well then maybe
would you give yourself an off-season budget of $100 and then say, "Okay, guys, go hog wild starting this date"?
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
And then in the beginning of the season, we'll reset the fab.
Sure.
So that'd be an opportunity to kind of bid on what's out there without doing the draft, because it does sound like he wants to do a rookie draft alone. I think those are a couple of good options for you. I'll let you continue,
for Evans,
because
yes.
You'll never stop talking about Mike Evans.
I will never.
When is too early to draft Mike Evans? Is it just because he has the same name as you?
Well, that's 50% of it.
Is it because he's twice as tall as you?
Twice as tall? Maybe
he's a big man.
Maybe as Jason, old Bebop over here.
Wow, pile it on.
To me, it's Mike Evans is a target. If you're talking strictly redrafts, the top of the second round, he's a target for me.
That's too early. So
that's where I'm targeting. So, honestly, early first round is too early. I mean, there's going to be guys who I want more than him, but back of the first round, he's in that category of talent for me.
Seems like this year he represents that player you really want to have that you might reach on a little bit because you want a share. You want the opportunity. You're more willing to take a risk, and so because of the youth, maybe in a keeper or a dynasty league, you're really going to reach up higher.
I'm willing to reach for Evans. That's basically the everything.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, or should I?
No, I mean, I think that's exactly accurate. It's not too high to grab him at the back of the first. I like him. I still would not. I think there's just better guys there that I would grab. But, early second, mid second, definitely grab him.
I don't want to throw any shade on Evans, but I do have a thought myself that they may draft a wide receiver higher than we're expecting them to do so. You have Vincent Jackson, who
he's going to age out real soon.
He might age out, and they have an opportunity here to build around Winston and give him other pieces to succeed with. So that's one piece I think needs to be remembered. He also, Evans, with those incredible target numbers, didn't play much of the season with ASJ. Not that I'm expecting big things out of him, but I'm just trying to find reasons why those numbers can't just kind of go up infinitely, because they can't. And so
it's always good to look at the counter argument and not just be completely positive on a guy. So I don't have a problem with that.
All right, Michael in Austintown, Ohio. The last couple of years I've gone with risk over safety. So he went more Mike, less Jason. 2 years ago, I picked Zach Stacy with my first round pick. Then last year, I took Jeremy Hill. So obviously these haven't worked out the way they should have. It's hard not having a player to really depend on. Going into next year's draft, should I go with a safe pick or a boom or bust pick? Thank you very much. Well, I mean, I'm not going to ask you guys that question.
I was just going to say that I still like taking risk. I just don't like taking risk with essentially my first two picks. My first two picks is where I'm going to go risk adverse, and then I go risk because I'm not risking as much.
Now, to me,
you've got you got most of your IRA tucked away into GE. Mike's got it all in Tesla.
I got it in penny stocks, my man. No, to me, look, the first round bust rate, probably half of those guys are going to bust. That's just the way that it goes. Now,
disappoint at least.
Sure,
right?
disappoint / bust. Now, like there's very, very few guys to me that have little to no risk.
I was gonna say, is safety an illusion?
Yes, I think safety is very much an illusion. So go with the upside. I was all on board with the Jeremy Hill. I feel unfortunate for you that you went with Zach Stacy in the first round. That's rough, but I'm still going with the guy who can boom and has the huge upside, knowing that everyone in that range has the chance to bust.
But doesn't everybody in that range also have a boom potential? I mean,
some of them have more than others, though.
How many guys in the first round don't have the chance to finish as a great option? That's why in the first and second round, I feel like everybody's got a high ceiling. I'm going to go with the safest floor.
Right, but okay, so let's say you're in the middle of the first round. Who's the safe guy there?
Who's going? Give me some names.
Julio Jones.
Okay, so you're in the middle of the first round. These are the guys available: DeVante, Freeman, Jamal Charles, Gronkowski, and Hopkins.
Well, Hopkins would be probably the safe of those three. I think it would probably be the safest pick of those three. Gronk is pretty safe. The risk there, I mean, obviously he has a little bit of injury history, but it's more positional. You're taking a risk by giving up a running back or wide receiver. Of those guys, that's, I'd probably rank them like that.
But just looking at the ADP from even from if you consider Peterson to have an age risk, but after Adrian Peterson, the list of the next 8 guys or so, they all have massive risks. So take the guy that you want and that you think will perform, and just I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean,
don't draft
DeVante
afraid.
Freeman.
Don't be afraid.
DeVante Freeman's far more risky than DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
There's nobody that's going to argue that point, I think. I mean, you got 1 year of kind of elite play versus, somebody who's at a position that's more consistent, that's done it for a few years, or maybe not at last year's level, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks with Freeman. He didn't start out last year as the starter. Where they went into week 1 and Tevin Coleman got 20 carries. It was only when Tevin Coleman got injured that that happened, and now in the offseason. So you just got to look at each guy individually and
there's no guarantees. There is more or less safety in different picks. All right, Byron in Arkansas has this question. He ended up with Mike Evans in the 3rd round, and he ended up with Winston very late in the draft. Now
this is a mock.
Yeah, this was a mock draft. He needed a tight end, and the only guy that he kind of thought was attractive there was this 3rd Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and adding Austin Seferian Jenkins to his team. So he just has a question about, is triple stacking that type of, would you do that?
No, don't do it. And here's why I wouldn't do it. Because there are plenty of other tight end options. We just talked about this in our last show. I'm the highest on ASJ. So if I'm the one saying, no, it's not worth putting these 3 together, I know you guys, specific to these 3 guys, not just a general rule, can't have 3 guys on the same offense, but I just believe that there are plenty of other options at tight end that are just as good as ASJ that are being drafted after Austin Seferian Jenkins.
I will say, I mean, if you're taking ASJ in the very last round, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can dump him and grab another guy anyway, so if you feel like you need to take a chance on it. But the odds, I think, of having success with those 3 guys, I mean.
Well, let me ask you guys this then.
That's a lot of shares in Tampa Bay.
I'm going to name a couple guys that are going significantly after him and see if you guys had Winston and Mariota, or would you.
Evans?
Yeah, Winston and Evans. Would you guys
more quarterbacks
draft Austin Seferian Jenkins or Dwayne Allen?
I would take Allen.
I'd probably take ASJ.
I would take Allen.
Zach Miller from the Chicago Bears.
I'd probably take ASJ.
That one's very close. I think I would lean Miller.
Jason Witten.
You're basically reading guys in order from my list. I mean,
oh, really?
These are all.
That's funny because I read them out of order from an ADP list.
Here's my order. Actually, now that I look at my list, I have Allen, Miller, ASJ, and Witten back to back to back to back.
And where's ASJ on that list?
3rd.
Okay.
So
there you go. My point is
in a half point.
My point is those are all guys that I would be willing to take over Austin Seferian Jenkins.
So you would do that to hedge the Tampa Bay.
To hedge the Tampa Bay.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move on here to Ryan in Austin. Would you keep Antonio Brown in the 1st or Jordy Nelson in the 9th?
Oh, PPR.
Wow, Mike.
That is the ultimate value question there.
My mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes.
That's perfect there.
Oh.
It's Antonio Brown.
Body or mind?
That's body.
That's soul, man.
Mind-
Down to my soul.
Your mind says you got to take that value, but
So I'm gonna put this out here for you. Let me put it another way. Jordy Nelson and Devonta Freeman, would you accept them in a trade for Antonio Brown? Somebody offered you Devonta Freeman and Jordy Nelson for Antonio Brown.
I don't think I would.
All right. Then you have held true to your beliefs.
Yeah.
You have passed the test.
what
my
say
friend.
you, Andy? Who would you keep?
Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
I mean,
There's only 5 guys or so in the league that are true
you say
elite.
5 guys?
Yeah,
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Sounds delicious.
We're going to get a burger. But there's only a handful of guys that are true elite, complete difference makers. Not every team gets one of those
Elite
guys.
squared.
And that would be Antonio
Yeah,
Brown.
going back to this, nobody's really safe. Antonio Brown is safe.
Yeah, he's as safe as they get.
Oh,
that's
great.
where
That
All right,
really
we're
just
gonna-
cursed him.
We're going to go to a voicemail question, I think.
Hey guys, this is Taylor. Love the show. I have a quick question for you. It's a 10-man standard keeper league. I get to keep 2. You lose the pick where you keep the player at. I have DeMarco Murray in the 3rd, Lamar Miller in the 4th, DeAndre Hopkins in the 5th, Allen Robinson in the 9th, and I also have Travis Kelce in the 7th. I'm thinking Hopkins in the 5th, Robinson in the 9th, leaving me spots 1 through 4 for the running back. So let me know what you guys think. Give me your opinions. Love the show. Bye.
Wow.
I'm not very far off what you have set up there and what you said. I would probably not, in a standard league, combine the values of both wide receivers when you got Robinson in the 9th. I would actually go Lamar Miller 4th, Allen Robinson 9th.
That is exactly what I would do, and I would do it because there's not a huge discrepancy in value between Hopkins and Miller, and it will leave you more flexibility in your draft, having one of each position. You don't have to get a running back.
Yeah, you don't have to have the mindset you just said, which is like, okay, I got to get a running back rounds 1 through 4.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
that argument has swayed me. I was on the 2 wide receivers, but I like to leave my options open, so that's how I would lean.
All right, Garrett in Kansas City said last season our point per reception league switched over to a keeper league with 5 per team. He's got OBJ, Hopkins, and Gurley for sure. But he also has Allen Robinson, Lamar Miller, Thomas Rawls, and Cam Newton.
You are starting with a good team.
I think I could package 3 of these guys to get either Julio, Lev Bell, or David Johnson. Which of my 4 would you keep, and which of the 3 would you trade for? Also could
okay.
keep 2 of my 4. So he doesn't have to trade them, obviously. He's trying to kind of trade up and grab another great top-tier option like his Gurley and OBJ and Hopkins. But does he already have that with Allen Robinson and Lamar Miller?
Right. So, OBJ, Hopkins, Gurley. I'm locking those guys in.
If I could move
Man.
Miller, Rawls, and Cam and get Le'Veon Bell and keep him alongside Allen Robinson, I would do that.
Or even Julio, or any of those 3. Because if you're having to send guys back, then this makes sense to me.
Right. Yeah. The way that I look at it is if you can package Cam, Rawls, and someone else for the same position that you're sending. So if you're sending A-Rob and you get and you get Julio, or you send Lamar Miller and you get Le'Veon Bell, that's what I would try to do. Otherwise,
Yeah.
A-Rob, Lamar Miller, and those other 3, you're still great.
Let me ask you a philosophical question that comes up with this situation. You're in a league that's a keeper league. Clearly, you're loaded. You're about to send 3 guys off that somebody else is only doing that trade so they can keep those 3 guys and have a really strong keeper group. Does that factor in your decision-making at all, or do you just have to wash that out and bring the best guys to the table for yourself?
No, I definitely think about that you're that you're shallowing the draft pool, and so that does factor in. But when you're talking about you have the opportunity to get an elite player, Julio, Lev Bell, and David Johnson's probably pretty close to there for me, but Julio and Lev Bell for sure. Because of the caliber of the player, I'm willing to sacrifice the draft pool.
I don't really mind making another team better at this stage of the year. The only time that I care is if we're nearing the trade deadline and I would make a deal that would make someone else that's clearly on their way to the championship better, then I worry about it. But this is so early, I'm just focused on my team. Make me the best I can be.
And that goes for the person in the opposite position here, sending off a Lev Bell or sending off.
Yeah, I think so, because if you've got one of those guys, I mean, we've been in this situation in a lot of our drafts where you go into the year and you pretty much know you have to trade your best asset because you're a little bit weaker elsewhere. Obviously, if they're keeping this many of those guys, they need to do that. They might need to unload and grab it, and it's probably going to be a good trade for both teams.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Anthony in Sacramento, California says, love the show, guys. Haven't missed an episode in months.
Oh, good man, Anthony.
Don't want to break the rules and miss an episode.
There's rules.
Yeah, there is. We give one password on every episode that if you don't put it in the computer, everything blows up. All right, I have a trade question that I could use some input on. I'm in a PPR keeper. It looks like keep 7.
It's like a half dynasty.
Yeah, no round penalty league, and you can trade the next season's draft picks. All right, so very similar to the league that we play in for one of our leagues of record, only we keep 3. The Evans owner is shopping him to me, and I have a couple of offers in my head. Oh, offer 1, Allen Robinson
Okay,
for Mike Evans.
All right.
Offer 2, Josh Gordon in a first-round pick. Do it. Offer 3, Randall Cobb, 2 first-round picks. How hard should I push for Evans? I would do offer 2, and that is it. That is the only one that I would do.
Yeah,
I still feel like it's a coin flip with Allen Robinson, so you're too neutral to make that trade.
Yeah, I believe that they're very close, in my opinion, especially for moving forward. I bet that Gordon that deal's gone. But if it's still available, I hope you hit accept before we were able to get to you. Otherwise, I'm not.
No guilt, Mike? You wouldn't have any guilt accepting that trade?
I think it would get vetoed, probably. Most leagues.
All right.
You guys would veto it.
No, we
Duff,
don't veto.
Let me move on here. Duff in Singapore. You make my bike commute amazing while I dodge cars.
Whoa, stay safe, Duff.
Just
safe.
like Todd Gurley dodging defenders.
Dodging cars.
Well,
If
dodging
you can
cars.
dodge a wrench,
That's what I was
you
going.
can dodge a car.
12-team half-point per reception league. Have to keep 3 from the following. Rawls for a 6th, Nelson for a 4th, Allen for a 5th.
Keenan Allen,
Yes.
just in case.
As opposed to Buck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Javorius.
Mike Evans for a 2nd.
Keenan Allen is a
Keep
lock.
3 of those guys. Rawls for a 6th, Allen for a 5th, Nelson for a 4, Evans for a 2. I am going.
I'm
three
probably
of those
going
guys. I'm
Rawls, Nelson.
I'm throwing Nelson back.
Really?
Yeah, ACL.
I would rather have Jordan Nelson in a 4th than Mike Evans for a 2nd. So I'm going to keep Nelson, and I'm actually going to throw Mike Evans back. I don't think he's insane value. In fact, I don't even think he's a value in the 2nd. I think that's about where you should be drafting him. So I would let him go, barring any news changes on Rawls.
That's fine.
I'm okay not getting value for Evans. I would keep the 3 wide receivers.
So you'd throw Rawls back.
I would.
Which I could do, depending on what the Seattle Seahawks do in the draft. But as of now, I want to keep him.
Ray in Ontario, Canada.
Bonjour, Ray.
That was angry almost.
It was not pleasant. With all the injuries to prime players
Sorry,
last
Ray.
season, I would expect the same to happen this year. Some first rounder will go down and everyone scrambles for the backup. And so, number 1, and he has 18 questions, is the handcuffs move tailored for running backs only?
Let's go one at a time here.
That's what I did.
It's mostly there's not really another situation I can think of.
Yeah, the other situations where you can handcuff a guy are extremely unique. It's not positional. It's not like, oh, yeah, you can handcuff a wide receiver or a tight end. It's like in this position. For instance,
Martellus Bennett?
Yeah, that was the one guy that at least comes to mind first, but I still wouldn't handcuff him. I would rather have the roster spot to be used and be open for streaming a position. And then if Gronk goes down, I'm going to spend my fab or spend my waiver to get Bennett.
Okay. All right. Question number 2. Does the league structure matter? With 8 teams, with an 8-team league, what does that
Being
say?
as in the smaller the league, the less important it is to handcuff is the question. So he's saying 8 teams, don't worry about it. Up to 12, you must do it. Is there any? Do you change how you look at the handcuff?
Yes, because of just sheer depth. I mean, if you're in an 8-team league, the likelihood of you being able to go grab Bilal Powell and play him in the event of an injury was pretty high last year.
Right.
As opposed to in a 12-team league when he's probably scooped up. So, yeah, I think it is a higher priority for those teams, and you also have a higher emphasis on elite players in those, so D'Angelo Williams being able to at least come in and be elite. You kind of got to take a chance on that versus just filling in the gaps with like a Charles Sims or something.
So during the draft, is the handcuff always your last or third to last pick?
No. It doesn't always.
No.
Kevin Coleman's not going third to last.
Yeah, I was going to say it depends on the player. I mean, if you draft Shady, you are going to get Carlos Williams. And if you think you're waiting till your last, pick-ish.
You are incorrect.
You will not be getting him. So it really depends on who it is. There are certain players, Tim Hightower, you can probably get with that third to last pick and grab your defense and your kicker in those last 2 rounds.
Is it a selection on draft day or play throughout the season? As in, do you always draft your handcuff or do you kind of feel it out through the season?
One of the biggest problems with drafting handcuffs, unless they are unique, is that you often get fatigued with them on your bench.
Mm-hmm.
You have, let's say you have 2 elite running backs. Let's say you got DeVante Freeman and you've got Le'Veon Bell. Are you going to fill 2 bench spots with Tevin Coleman and D'Angelo Williams for the entirety of your season? Because you probably think you will for about 3 weeks, and then you'll be like,
"Oh my need to drop somebody."
Look at this guy's on the. Oh, C.J. Anderson got hurt. Ronnie Hillman's sitting out there. And so that's the situation you get in. I think there are situations where you want to do that with one guy, but very rarely do I do it personally because I just am not willing to. I'd rather have a guy on my bench that is better and tradable, as opposed to a guy like D'Angelo Williams who I could not trade unless I have an injury.
Yeah, I would say that the need increases the longer the season goes. You'll hear us talk about it, but as you're kind of approaching the playoffs, let's say you're in contention, you say, "Oh, I'm going to make the playoffs." You better get your handcuffs on your team.
I'll pay a price for my handcuffs in that situation
because you need to be ready.
Yeah, to answer the question, I very much more often have handcuffs not after the draft, but through the year.
Yep. Andrew in Florida, 12-team keeper league, keeping Le'Veon Bell in the 3rd and Gurley in the 5th. Do I now have to go wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, or since that position is so comparatively deep, can I take another running back if I can't get Julio Jones? What say you?
Keeping Lev Bell in the 3rd, Gurley in the 5th. Do I have to go wide receiver in the first 2 rounds? What's the format for this league? Is there
a 12-team half-point PPR?
But you don't have a disproportionate amount of running backs starting or flex positions? We don't see that, right?
There's nothing. I'm going to guess normal, regular.
No, not in the first 2 rounds, but you need a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance that you'd be better off to grab 2.
Right.
But it's so hard. We never want to say you have to do something because it's foolish to go into a draft thinking this is what I have to do.
I mean, you might end up with Gronk and Evans with those first 2 picks.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I would deprioritize running backs a little bit to me if I was going into this draft because at this point you're getting a flex player which is okay or then a bench player depending on your format.
I got a scenario for you.
Okay.
Let's say you're at the back. You're the kind of like the back middle, so that 7-8 area. Now, your tier of running back, there's still, let's say, the 2nd tier or the 1st tier, whatever. It's running out. It is running out, and you see that the wide receiver tier is not. Would you take that gamble?
Sure.
Okay, and what if that is inversed? If the wide receiver tier is running out,
well, then then you have to grab the wide receiver.
So just look at your tiers is how you would be approaching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just protect yourself from being locked in on one position if you can.
Stay water, my friend.
Yeah, as much as you can. With, Lev Bell and Gurley put you in a position where you're probably okay at running back.
Yeah.
But if an incredible value's there, then you might have to jump on it. You got a flex position. You got a place to start a guy. So that is going to be that was the last question on today's show.
All right.
So we got the quarterbacks. We're going to go through 20 quarterbacks next week. We stream a lot of quarterbacks. We talk about a lot of guys during the year. We might as well set the table for them and talk about them in depth. We have a lot of guys I'm excited to talk about. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, the sophomore quarterbacks coming into this year. some of the veterans, the Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Carson Palmer, I believe the Golden Oldies, as I've called them before. and so I'm really excited about those 2 shows, and so you should be too. And like we mentioned earlier, if you want to, head over to podcastawards.com on Friday through the end of the month, and you'll have the opportunity to help us out, nominate the show. It'd be really cool to have the support of the Foot Clan and kind of get this show some recognition, which really reflects on you guys, because that's why we do this show year-round all the time, is because of our incredible listeners. So we thank you so much for your support here and over at jointhefoot.com. Stay tuned for the show after the show on YouTube, and we will be back. We'll be back next week. You guys have any other thoughts?
Nope.
Nothing. It's a good show after the show. You guys don't know what it is, but it's going to be great.
Surprise.
I know what it is.
It's going to be huge.
Well, then, you know what? I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to watch it.
Goodbye.
Very nice.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.